Yo, dude. John. Santos. Santos, where are you? Hey, Vanish. Santos, are you in here?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, there you are. More promote to panelist. Okay.
Sorry, I was just telling you exactly that.
Yeah. Okay, so now Santos is a panelist. Hey, everybody. As you can tell, we have we are we're doing it the right way this time. We're actually in webinar format. It's 2 p.m. People are rolling in. There's a lot more features here when it comes to our ability to keep everyone muted. Oh, we're going to allow recordings. And B, there's some Q&A functionality that we may use someday. And, this is just really the way that we should do it. I'm saying hello in the chat. Can we get a little where everybody is calling from or dialing in from today? I am dialing in from Austin, Texas. Santos, where, San Bernardino, is that where you live? San Ramon, California. Santos is in San Ramon. John Ely, Austin, Texas. We got anybody else? I know we have other people because there's a ton of other people on this webinar. Nobody else? Q&A, here we go. Vancouver, San Antonio, Texas. What's up, Carlos? India. Nihad, nice. Chats are disabled. Oh, John, can we enable chats? I don't know. Yeah, we're going to enable the chat. Thank you, everybody. As you can tell, we're kind of new at this here. So, all right. Well, it's 2:01 now. So, Santos, I think we should just hop right in. What do you think? Oh. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to play question jockey here. Yeah, let's rock, dude.
All right, thanks. So, as I was putting together this presentation, I did a brain dump and ended up with like 20 slides with lots of text. And I asked Adam for advice, and he suggested I should boil it down to like 6 slides with image. So Adam, you'd be glad to know. So I only have 6 or 7 slides.
Great.
In the process.
Yes. No. I just said great.
Okay.
Sorry.
You can. Okay. So, but in the process, I weeded it down to kind of focus more on mindsets that are relevant to like business rather than individuals, which maybe in another section I can address like individual mindset that I've seen with successful founders or entrepreneurs. But with that caveat, here's why mindset is so important. Mindset is almost at the very center of our existence, right? It's how we perceive reality. With mindset, we kind of create mental models or belief system, which is how we experience everything around us, right? Mindset drives your habits and results and definitely outcome one of the key contributors to your success. Now, in order to change outcome or change your own reality, you can basically change your mindset, right? This is where it's important to understand some of these mindsets that we know works. So, with that, let's dive in. There are 7.
Hold on, Santos. Can I ask? So on LinkedIn, they're saying they can't hear you that well, but I can hear you on Zoom fine. Can everybody hear on? Let's just start with Zoom. Can everybody hear that's on Zoom? Fine. Can you just? Okay, so we're getting a bunch of thumbs up on Zoom. So on LinkedIn, can you hear him? Or we're going to get Santos a new mic and preamp and everything, so he should sound like me pretty soon. But can you hear him, or is it just is it distorted a little bit? Because I'm hearing it distorted a little bit just because of what it is, but it's. Can somebody?
So let's see.
Okay, that's probably going to be a little bit better. Can somebody from LinkedIn just comment like how it is right this second? I mean, they're a couple seconds delayed. I'm going to assume that did what we needed to do, and I'm going to mute myself and then go back to being producer. Sorry, Santosh, hit it.
Right, thanks. So there are 7 mindsets that I put together, and here's what we're going to discuss in the next 20 minutes, right? So you'll find what I have observed is business is all about getting stuck and then getting unstuck and then getting stuck again at a different different stage or evolution of your business. Expect uncertainties, and we'll talk more about it. One of the common mistake entrepreneurs do is they try to apply what they've learned in the past, right? What gets you here will not get you there. Your experience itself can be a barrier to your future growth. Third, I define that most entrepreneurs or founders or leaders for that matter do not achieve their true potential because they're not thinking bigger, right? They have all the traits in place, but you only go as far as you think you can. So we'll talk more about that. And the fourth one is really close to my heart. I do not think you can grow, let alone dominate your space if you're not different, right? So being unique is like at the very core of your existence. Do not underestimate yourself. If you may be a tiny company competing with a $10 billion company, you still have a lot of strength that you're probably not considering. And then sixth is we'll talk about this winner-take-all model, how our business and ecosystem is evolving, where the only way to survive is to win and win it big and dominate. And then the last one, we talk about perpetual growth, and how that's so closely linked to continuous learning and how you can create these flywheel inside your own business. So, in the last 15 years or so, I've been fortunate to have run into some of the largest, business in our space. And I have closely watched not just the team and the founders, but also the business practices that led to success or failures in many cases. And I'll try to weave in some of the stories wherever I can as we discuss these topics. So in this slide, I want to talk about this concept that will resonate with every. And then nothing changes. right? And this is what it feels like being stuck. It could be early stage, it could be mid stage, it could be revenue level, it could be the lack of product market fit. Um, and then when you finally manage to unstuck yourself, it feels like you are pushing an open door, right? Whatever you do seems to work effortlessly, right? The these first of all, you need to acknowledge that you will run into these situations. Second, I think the goal of your business is to create an environment or a space or certain synergies where it always feels like an open door, right? Where it always feels like you are, doing something easy. You don't want to end up like pushing a shut door all the time, right? Now, how do you do that? And this is kind of the breakthrough that we all aspire to have in whatever initiatives we are involved with, right? So, first of all, you cannot unstuck yourself using linear methods, right? You need to try something non-linear, right? You need to try something different. So what I mean is you cannot do more of the same that you have been doing and expect yourself to kind of, unstuck yourself. So here is a model that I have, and a related mindset that I have sort of cultivated over time. So every business or every market vertical always has these undercurrents going on, right? Or trends going on. So if you ride uh, these undercurrents, you'll find that your business just becomes a little bit easier. So what are these undercurrents? So let me give you an example based, some of the companies I've worked with. So if you think about why Apollo succeeded, and the timing of when they succeeded is really important, right? They had been in business for, say, 7 years, with not much to show for, because they were still struggling and trying to compete with Zoom Info and so on, right? And then COVID happened, completely unrelated event. And with COVID, a new undercurrent was created in the market, which Apollo took advantage of, but a lot of the other competitors did not, right? And it just made their business so much easier, right? It felt like an open door. Before COVID, it felt like a shut door. So what did COVID do, and how Apollo took advantage of this, right? So let's discuss. So with COVID, a lot of the marketing and lead channels kind of disappeared or dried up, especially for SMBs, right? So they couldn't go to events, they couldn't get those chamber of commerce meets, and people are foot traffic had dried up. So a lot of these SMBs, agencies, others went online and said, how do we get leads? And then the only solution seemed to be like Zoom Info, and Zoom Info won't talk to them unless they're willing to pay $30,000 entry fee, right? So this is where selling data for $99 suddenly made a lot of sense. $99 per user per month, right? And it created a swell. There was already pent-up demand. Anybody that did this could have succeeded, not just Apollo, Rocket Reach, Lucia, any of them, and if they really committed to it, right? But if they did this 2 years before COVID, they couldn't have succeeded, right? So look for those strategic undercurrents in your own business. And by the way, there are 4 new undercurrents since then in the market, right? Some these competitors are taking advantage of, some they aren't. The very ones that succeeded may not be taking advantage of new currents, right? So look for commit to some of these strategic changes. It's just going to make your business uh, much easier. So let me switch to the next some reason my
we're having all sorts of technical problems. Santos, just so you know what was going on, by the way, we switched to the webinar format, so it didn't do the correct stream from Zoom to my LinkedIn Live. So my LinkedIn Live right now is just the laptop recording my face, and it's my mic on my laptop picking up your voice. So I encouraged everybody on LinkedIn Live to actually join the Zoom, and several have. So that's what's going on. We'll have it worked out by next week. This is just, we're working out these logistics.
Next mindset, which I find really important, is this is related to cognitive bias in psychology, right? How you became successful, you will always feel like you'll have a strong bias that future success will come from doing what you did in the past. And that's something that you really need to, especially if you are later in the career, if you're experienced, you get more and more confident and you have stronger conviction, and you certainly benefit from that in decision making. But then the very conviction, the very entrenched experience can prevent you from learning new skills or applying or being open to new ideas to unstuck yourself, right? So that's something to be aware of. Just because you've been successful, say at growing your business in the past, doesn't mean you can use the same strategy to continue to grow or continue to find future growth, right? It is really difficult to kind of step away from your experience to kind of think about what's required to really solve a problem, because at each stage of your business, the way I look at it is, for lack of better metaphor, think about it as a computer game, right? Where you switch levels, right? And each level is like your entire environment changes, your rules of the business changes, your game changes, right? And you need to adapt. You cannot play level 3 with level 1's rules, right? And this staying aware that you need to adapt, evolve to stay relevant, and then I think it's really important. So in terms of example, the best example I can think of is retention itself. And Adam, feel free to add more color. You've been through this longer than I have. So, the way retention grew, at least in the beginning, was a very sales-led model with just one rep getting to 6 million, and then we realized, this is not going to scale. We hired a sales team. We got to a certain stage, and then we realized we got to do something different. So we hired a marketing team, and now we are focusing a lot on events and marketing and to scale it further, right? And then we launched RB2B. Typically what most entrepreneurs would do is they saw success with one approach, so then they just replicate the same approach, right? We didn't do that. Now we are using LinkedIn-driven PLG for RB2B. Very different and a very fresh approach. In fact, I don't think anybody else has done it in the industry as well. We're kind of constantly innovating here. The question is why? Because we have experience doing it one way. We could certainly replicate that easily, right? But then it turns out the product that we have built has a different set of undercurrents we can ride, right? And it just feels like we are doing it right, because it feels like everything we do, it's an open door, right? It's not a shut door, which, like I said in the previous slide, is a big indicator that you're riding the right trends. So this is what I wish for you as well.
Santos, can we dig into what the different undercurrents are? I can answer that, by the way. I just want to elaborate on that a little bit. So, as you all know, that I'm sure it's like this RB2B motion is LinkedIn centric. It is a big free offer, and that's a total contrast to what is an annual deal that we're selling at retention.com. My founder brand is probably helping that brand a little bit, but a lot of the reason I started, which I said last week, a lot of the reason I started making LinkedIn content about B2B is because the stuff that we were doing for founder brand was not actually generating business leads for us. So that motion, we've gotten very, very good at looking at a target account list, getting them to come to a physical event. They just did one last week in LA, this like owned event we have called Retox. They had 350 customers there, or prospects and customers. And that starts sort of like, a long courtship, which ends in a demo. Those are high in the funnel leads, of course. And yeah, like that motion is just nothing like this PLG thing. The PLG thing wouldn't work. We were really trying to do a PLG for that Shopify space, but for the product that we had, it basically amplifies throughput in these e-commerce stores. Meaning, if they're making $5 on their abandoned cart, we'll make them another $5. If they're making 500,000, we'll make them another 500,000. So it turned out, which is one of the things that we got super wrong, thinking we had a unicorn twice over with that business, that instead of being able to serve 50,000 stores with a 2 to 3x ROI or more at $500 a month or more, which we thought in the end of 2022, there's only about 1,400 people in the Shopify ecosystem that we can make this work reliably with, just because the stores are much smaller than we thought. So it's like the LinkedIn driven PLG motion, even if it wasn't LinkedIn driven, a freemium version of our tool just wouldn't work for the Shopify ecosystem. Whereas if you look at the B2B side, what's cool about our B2B is, like, my wife owns this PR agency and she gets like 3 site visitors a day. She still thinks our B2B is dope because every once in a while, a prospect will hit her website. Every day she looks at the report of like, who came to her site or whatever. So there's this cool quality of it where, what's aligned on the RB2B side, right? It's like Santos and I are the ideal customer profile. So when we talk about our experience and our pain, it relates perfectly with the audience on LinkedIn, and it just resonates super well. There's also true value in the free product. So the PLG motion makes sense in that regard, right? We're still trying to refine, free to paid, which I talk about a lot. And by the way, if you've been contributing in the comments on the pricing and the sales deck and everything else, thank you so much. Like, it's just, I'm blown away by like the value of insights that are coming back from this community effort we're doing. But I think just diving into those two totally different examples, it's like, I wish the Shopify motion was easier, because like that field sales motion is super hard. The good thing about it is field sales motions will last forever. Like, even with the mega trend in declining response rates, that motion is one that people will be doing till the end of time. And, it just, the opportunity yields itself to this completely different situation that and go-to-market motion we had. So I'll pass it back to Santos. I just wanted to elaborate a little more on the detail between the two motions.
Thank you. So, you've got to keep evolving. You've got to, the market and business landscape is like a living being. It's like a living thing with all the other competitors, right? It keeps changing. It keeps, evolving. And to keep pace, you cannot just always look back at a market leader or look back at your own experience and apply. With each change, you're in a new environment that requires a thorough review of like the lessons you learned, and some of them may be applicable, some may not. So that's one mindset to kind of stay aware of, is you cannot just blindly apply what a market leader has done or what you have done in the past to solve future business problems. All right. So what we want to you're thinking, you can think much, much bigger. This is probably one of the most common mistakes I've seen people make with perfect good capability, environment, great strategies, big opportunity, but then everybody only goes as far as they think they can. And so here are some numbers. Just stare at these and tell me if I'm wrong, right? So there are 5.4 billion internet users and 300 million companies in this world. And look at Salesforce. They're clearly saturated their market, and they have only 200,000 customers, and they have saturated the market. Right? ZoomInfo has only 30,000 customers. Just in US, we have 30 million companies. And yes, a lot of them are SMBs and small, but then Intuit has figured out how to make money from SMBs. I mean, many other companies, including LinkedIn, Deal, and others are doing decent revenue. But the point here is everybody can go bigger, including Salesforce and ZoomInfo, and certainly you can. And it's my goal from this slide is to inspire you to just keep thinking bigger. And when you think bigger, it's not just revenue or customers. Like break it down, the number of leads you're getting in top of the funnel. Can you 10x it? And once you manage to 10x, come back and say, can I 10x it again? And trust me, there are strategies, there are ways. We're just limited by our own mindset that limits how far we can go. So here's an example from when I look back into my career. I remember, fast forward, let's just look at DNB, ZoomInfo, Apollo, because I'm so familiar with these companies, right? DNB has about 10,000, 12,000 accounts, so maybe 50,000 users. ZoomInfo has 30,000 accounts, so I'm guessing 500,000, let's say 500,000 users, right? Apollo, we have 3 million users. So one could, I literally went through this journey, right? ZoomInfo. At that time, we would have thought getting to 250,000 users would totally saturate the market, right? And yet Apollo came around, and now there are 3 million users just from Apollo, and there are many other. So there is this French economist that John Baptiste that said that supply creates its own demand, right? So what you see happen not just in data or CRM or many other verticals is as access to solutions become more and more prevalent or easy, new demand is created, right? Which is what we saw with Apollo. Now, 3 million users, is this the end? I think the next new core that's going to, in this very space, will have 10 million users. Is that going to be the end? Certainly not, right? The new core 2 will probably have 100 million users, and it will probably be a global company. Now, how do I know? Because look at the number of users Google has. They have 1.3 billion users globally, right? LinkedIn has 800 million users. So why is it so difficult to believe that a version of Apollo cannot, or say 2 generations later cannot have 100 million users? I think this is where all of us need to, whatever we are doing, whether we are founders or business leaders, we got to push the limits, make each step you take bigger than your previous step. And part of innovation is really to first dream big, right, and challenge ourselves before, and new solutions you'll find will present itself. I'm trying to think the best way to say this, but I find most leaders are simply afraid to think big because they are afraid to fail, right? And this also makes this one of the biggest leadership trait is to think really big. bigger than anyone else around you or in your space, and that is also a way you can differentiate yourself from the rest of the leaders or vendors. A lot of the startups, they just want to they don't want to think different. They don't want to be um, you know they almost feel like they have to um, be realistic about the tree. So try and dream much bigger, and then break it down into all metrics of your venture. All right. This we are living in an attention economy where whoever grabs the attention first has the first step to the revenue, and nothing grabs attention more than you than being different, right? So um, if you go to G2 and look at any market category, you'll find that there are like 200, sometimes 500 companies, and that number is only going to increase in future. How does one company grab attention over like hundreds of other market substitutes? So, and if you don't have a strategy to appear different or look different or grab attention some way, you are missing out on your potential. You simply not scale. You can't just expect you build and people will come, right? You got to have, and this goes, I would go as far as to say this is part of your innovation strategy, right? You cannot just innovate in your product, but not in your marketing strategy. And in order, so being different, if you break this down and unpack this further, it has to be in the way you do events, the way you talk to your customers, your messaging, and even your product. So everything you do as a company, the way you hire people, if you can just do just a bit different. And so a natural incline for a startup is to enter a market and look around and find the market leader, and then look at what the market leader did to get to, um, like become a market leader in the space, and try to copy their strategy, right? And that makes probably perfect sense because the set of events or actions that led to their success, you could easily replicate those best practices and get the same success, right? Very wrong. You could be further wrong. And I can't emphasize how important it is to be different and how important it is to not copy strategies from your best competitor. That is like a recipe for disaster. Because by the time you copy, your competitors are far ahead, you perpetually stay behind. And in today's world, staying behind is like just a slow death. You either win or you just give up and go away, just slowly die. So
Can I tell a copying story real quick, Santosh?
please.
So my first startup was called Robley Email Marketing, and basically we got, before Built With Dad and I's or whatever, we got a list of constant contacts customers before everybody was calling them, and we just copied Constant Contact. And I thought that was the right thing to do. If you had the same software and it was cheaper, then you would grow. And we were able to get to 3 million by calling that list and going like 50% more opens for half the price and put them on the software. But because we had copied them, it wasn't viable beyond that list. MailChimp was 1,000 times better with their free offer, literally 1,000 times better. Every one of our customers would have been on MailChimp's free plan if they knew it existed. So it took way too long for me to realize that this slide, and now that's so in my core that just I have to be as different as possible in whatever I'm doing. And I look, so get emails we launched in November of 2019, and the core value proposition was visitor hits the website, doesn't fill out a form, and we can get it to an email address that's deliverable. And that was something that the D2C universe had never heard before. And boy, can I tell you the difference of approaching the world with that value proposition versus a copied version of Constant Contact that wasn't even as good as Constant Contact that a tiny team was trying to build and iterate on and whatever else, right? So I just know because I've felt it and I've done it. Like I remember the CEO of this company called Privy used to hate me because like we needed like I thought we needed an exit intent pop-up, and we just literally copied his UI and put it in our UI, which was already a copy of Constant Contact. Like, it sounds crazy to me now, but I'm just a much more experienced entrepreneur. You know, I just want to tell you that story because I think it's very easy to fall into that early in your journey. It's almost hard to, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to share that because what you were saying resonates deeply with my personal experience, Santosh.
Yeah, thank you. Makes a lot of sense. And so much of time is wasted, right? Going through that copy under. So to truly succeed, companies have to do something unique, right? And doing something unique is not just building a different product, but doing different go-to-market. And so back to this, let's look at this example of framework, right? Zoom info, differentiated. It was this very similar data than D&B, right? But the way they sold it through product and through a slightly different go-to-market, but a very different product because they had SaaS tool than D&B's CSV-based data and better SaaS tool and so on. Now, Apollo could have just copied everything the exact same way and they could have succeeded. They didn't. They came along and they used PHG, very different than what Zoom did, right? And then in the future, company that comes around cannot expect to succeed just because they copy Apollo product and Apollo's PHG or go-to-market. It's got to be very different. And just take that to heart. I think this mindset of being different, like in both macro and micro level, is so important, and it's becoming more and more important because of the way we are going through this information symmetry, right? Where ideas are traveling, news is traveling. Only what's different captures people's attention. So as you're striving for excellence, being different, I think, provides a good framework to create a competitive edge. Here we go. So the next one, do not underestimate yourself. Even if you are very early stage or just starting, or you'll be surprised at how much you can achieve these days with very little. And it just takes maybe 2 years for a company barely surviving, becoming a unicorn. And I put this picture because this is a metaphor that is a strong one that reminds me. If you've seen an adult elephant tied to like a tiny pole with a rope, it's always bothered me, like how in the world is this elephant not smart enough to shut that off, right? Because an adult elephant weighs 12,000 pounds, and that rope can certainly not pull it. So it turns out the story is that when this elephant was young, they tied this elephant to this portable stick and rope, and at that time it couldn't shut itself off or untie itself. And as the elephant grows into this massive machine, like sheer strength, it just forgot to try. It just takes it for granted. So it is trapped in its own mindset, right? We are no different. We continue to evolve, but we look at how far we can go, or our own strength. And when I say we, it's both individual but also companies. When we start companies or initiatives, we feel like there's a $1 billion, revenue competitor. They will always remain a $1 billion revenue competitor, right? And forget how far we can go. And there are examples, time and again, right, of disruption. And this is something, like I said, it only takes a few years to kind of disrupt and grow. And this is a powerful metaphor of how you can surprise yourself. And this goes back to the ambition, right? Your limits are set by your own ambition and capabilities, but more ambition than capabilities. So if I go back to some of the stories, honestly, I remember having this conversation with the founder of ZoomInfo once, trying to imagine that. By the way, one of the reasons I joined ZoomInfo was because I was so impressed by LinkedIn. LinkedIn had gone IPO in the summer or fall of 2012. At the same time when I joined ZoomInfo, I had made some investments and I read their prospectus, and they spoke about how big the data business could be, and that kind of led one thing led to another. And at that time, I remember having this conversation, and everybody laughed at how can ZoomInfo be a $1 billion company or be as big as LinkedIn, or and yet today it is, right? It's very hard to imagine, and we were clearly underestimating ourselves. In fact, I remember early days, we got an acquisition offer from one of the competitors for 25 million. The revenue was around 10 million. And we always took that seriously. We took it to the board, and we were excited that the business could be sold. The year was 2013, probably early. And within 12 months, we had grown the revenues that were close to like 25 million, what they were offering to buy the business. And I'm glad the board said no. And, but that gives you a sense of there's a lot that can happen with very little. So don't underestimate yourself, irrespective of where you are. Just don't let your limiting or beliefs kind of hold you back from your true potential. Here we go. So another mindset I try to think about, because it guides me towards growth in ways some of the others don't. So our market and ecosystem has fundamentally shifted. We tend to think about not just our demand and market, but life in general as a bell curve, right? Like a progressive, uniformly distributed. Nothing is uniform about reality, right? We have gone from this, what I call bell curve, to I'm calling it burst curve, where demand happens in bursts, and then it creates a winner-take-all model where, because everybody's like, we are all a hive mind subscribing to the same content. You probably know this number, right? LinkedIn, 8 years to get to 100 million users, right? It took OpenAI, 3 months to get 100 million users, and Meta's that two-tier type solution that they launched, it took them 5 days to get to 100 million, right? And it's not far. In the next 12 months, we'll probably have a product that within 24 hours will get to 100 million users, right? So what a lot of this suggests is communication is becoming more and more important with your prospects and community, and then it creates this take-home model, right? If you're good, if your product solves a real problem, there's no more like sharing market share with like 12 other competitors, and everybody gets like 5 to 10%, and life is good. There's going to be one, like look at the CRM space, right? There are like a handful that take all the market share, and like hundreds of companies fighting for the crumbs. And then look after every vertical, there's like market leaders that dominate, and everybody fights for crown, right? If you are small, you got to learn or start to think and build your company for market domination, or like you cannot survive. Like you cannot build a company to fight for crumbs. There's no more in between, right? It's either crumbs or like $1 billion revenue company, and that changes the way you look at business, right? Right from upfront, it changes the strategies you deploy. So, for instance, when we would started to talk about RB2B, we could have easily, considered building a business where it generates 5 million in revenue, and that would be good. Like given, we are not investing, like it's still going to be pretty profitable and so on. But instead, we design our go-to-market and product to completely dominate. And our goal this year is to get 15,000 accounts using, maybe next year, 50,000 accounts using our B2B, right? And that changes the way you look at this business, your marketing strategy, even your data strategy, right? We could have easily say what data to do this, but if we have to plan for 50,000 accounts and their website traffic, we cannot take on that extra cost. So it took us a long time, but we kind of built our own database in-house, right? So that's just an example of how you have to inject this new demand model, this what I call burst curve, or winner take all model, right up front in your business strategy. Even if you're just starting off, even if you're early, at least invest in this mental model or mindset. And once you do, you start building efficient systems and resources. And those systems and resources will start setting you apart from your competitor. You start to look different. No different than what we are doing here at RB2B. Are we doing with time? I'll try to split this up. So this is the last slide. For growth, it's really important to have these perpetual learning systems. A lot of the companies early on, they learn a lot, they take risks, they kind of pivot, and then once they get to a certain revenue stage, they feel comfortable, they stop pivoting, stop learning. And please don't do that because this is again as applicable in personal life as in business. You will go through this process of getting stuck, unstuck. Continuously reevaluating and learning is key to perpetual growth machine. And one thing to consider is to build flywheels. The best business, I think, is such where marketing and customer acquisition and product, they're all designed such that every day they survive, it keeps getting easier and easier, right? Look at LinkedIn, since we spoke about, or even any of these, even for Apollo. The businesses are designed where every month is not the same effort, right? There's network effect, there's flywheel, there's growth loops. The way it's designed is the business keeps getting easier and easier and easier, hence more profitable with time, right? Don't settle for anything less. See if you can build something like that for your own business, where, like in the case of LinkedIn, every user that comes in, they bring their friends, they kind of subsidize the data cost, their inventory, and then that makes it easier to attract future users, right? Create something like that. We are doing it ourselves with retention in RB2B. All right, let me stop there. Adam, back to you.
All right. So I have enabled the chat, or there's Q&A. So yeah, we got probably like 11 minutes to ask Santos questions. Yeah, we're open. Webinar chat or Q&A, fire them at me if you want. I will warm Santos up with a question. So like, let's take Apollo, for example. They were sort of stuck for 5 years at whatever, a single digit ARR number. You made some major strategic changes. So my understanding from talking to you was they were trying to sell the same, worse data than ZoomInfo for half the price. And then the disruptive move during COVID was drop it to $99, right? From 15,000. How soon did you know that was working?
So any such change when you're riding a strategic trend, it comes with it's a hypothesis, right? You don't know it works, and then think about the S curve. The bottom part of the S curve is always flat, so you keep doing what you have conviction and you see no results, right? So the response is a weak signal, so you got to stick it out and so to answer your question more directly, I think it took like 12 months or 6 to 12 months to kind of have turn that into an experiment to having a lot of confidence that this can work.
And then what were some indicators that it was actually working?
I think it's the conversations with users and customers. You see them excited, and you see that you're lit a fire, and a lot of people are talking about you on LinkedIn and elsewhere, or you feel like you're doing something that others aren't. Right? You're meeting some pent up or unmet demand in the market.
Next question. No one's asking any questions here, so I'm going to just keep asking questions. Why do you think Henry was able to grow ZoomInfo to over, $1 billion and whatever? I don't even. What do they have in revenue? I don't know.
Yeah,
so,
$1.5
billion SaaS revenue. What qualities? What was his mindset superpower? What got him there?
So he clearly, saw a much bigger opportunity. So when ZoomInfo grew to close to 100 million by selling to mostly SMBs or mid-market, right? Henry probably saw the opportunity to take it to enterprise. So there were two big strategies: going to enterprise, penetrating and expanding into enterprise, which meant increasing prices. But the second part, which he did very well, is ZoomInfo is really a sales company, not a data company. They're really good at selling, right? Which Henry, I think, recognizes. So by acquiring all these other use case or expanding into market adjacencies and acquiring other companies and SKUs and adding it and bundling to ZoomInfo contract, I think probably helped them triple their revenue just by adding these extra line items. And in the process, showing a decrease in total cost of ownership of their customers.
Yeah. Sweet. We're getting some questions. Sajag, excuse me if I butchered that pronunciation, asks, what's Santos's take on winner-take-all model when it comes to raising VC? If the plan is for domination, then why not raise VC money with strategic investors versus bootstrapping? I think in the case of RB2B specifically.
So we don't really see the need for VC money. 10 years ago, or even like 20 years ago, building technology or going after or acquiring customers were expensive. And since then, since the last couple of decades, the cost have only been going down. Cost of acquisition, cost of building technology, unless you are like creating a new LLM or there are certain pockets where it's very expensive. But what we are doing at RB2B, we could have the cake and eat it too. We could dream of being a massive company and being profitable and staying away from raising investments. But the bigger reason why we think raising investment is not a good idea at this stage is it gives us the freedom. It gives us there's certain things we can do that we simply won't allow, and that just helps us grow rapidly.
Yeah, I think my 2 cents is, we have like 6 million of free cash coming off retention.com, including all the current expenses for RB2B. So like, if we needed to really gas it, like we tried to with retention.com, it was there to do that. And I think Santos says this like in a strange way, it's like VCs allow you to go really big, like really, really, really big. But then there's this in between area where they may not be as patient as you might need to be. And being kind of like founder led and financially independent gives you the opportunity to be incredibly patient with like a MailChimp type strategy, which is like what this really is at its core. It's something that we are definitely foregoing near-term revenue right now. There's no question about it. And the idea is that exponential user growth over time will lead to a market presence, which is much more valuable than the revenue that we're giving up. We may never have as much revenue as we could get, but the value of that scale is just immense in other ways that are non-financial and contribute to EV. So let's move on. Santosh or Adam, how do you build a market domination mindset if you're a challenger brand in a space with, let's say, 5 to 10 players who are established? And what might that play look like practically? I mean, Santos loves this. I mean, he just loves to say all the time the data space could always be disrupted in 5 different ways. Like, and there's already so many players in it. So
yeah, and I keep using the data space as an example. I'm sure the same dynamics exist in every other space. Look for market trends, look for micro trends, and see if you can ride a trend. It's not easy, even for like for any of the competitors, to leave what they're doing and focus on a different strategy or a different product or different unmet demand, or find those micro trends. There's always these undercurrents that buyer needs are continuously evolving. If you are there to meet the latest need, you can get ahead of the 5 other competitors.
Okay, Nick Morin asks, you went from free to a single plan of $495, and now you're moving to a tiered pricing. Is it because it was limiting your growth, my guess, or are you targeting SMB and enterprise, which requires 2 approaches to pricing? So I've written a bunch on LinkedIn about this, and I thank LinkedIn for all the insight. The idea, our intention with that pricing of free and $495 was to try to make a low churn product out of this, which the idea was we'd give away the leads and then to a very thin slice of the market charge for a workflow, which is like integrations and some other stuff. There were just a lot of problems with that $495. Number one, you can parse the Slack block and take the data and do anything you want with it. So charging for the workflow for most of these people wasn't going to happen. And then there was this other phenomenon where the free was so incredibly valuable that willingness to pay for anything, no matter what we proposed, basically went to zero, which it was just a problem. And meanwhile, there's like hundreds and hundreds of people telling us they would pay just less. So that was the idea with the tiered pricing. And it's not like we still had great user growth. It's just the original hypothesis was just wrong, because if we wanted the app to virally expand, we had to give away the Slack integration because that was the magic moment. And the hypothesis of we'll give away Slack and charge for other stuff was not a sound hypothesis. So that's why we changed. Another question. I love how you position Zoom as a sales company, and I've seen some companies that are truly sales companies, not so much product per se. What is the best strategy for them to go from 5 to 100 million, given they won't win on product? So Marvel, are you saying, is this hypothetical? A company with 5 million ARR that's good at sales and not product. How do you get them to 100 million? Is that the question, Marvel? Yes.
So it's 100 billion, not million. They're already at a billion and a half.
No. He's saying 5 million today. How would you get, if you were sales driven 5 million, what's the best? Yeah. Okay. Without sort of like products, if you're not a product led company, like what's the best path to 100 million?
That's actually brilliant. I think, and you and I talked about this already, Adam. The future more will come from go to market. Your ability to sell, cut through the noise, market better, rather than build better products. Because the product as a mode is changing and switching rapidly. Because you can just using AI and build photocopy of other products, right? So, if you are a great sales company doing 5 million, you have an edge over all the other product-led company. Create the right narrative, get to your buyer audience faster than others can. Don't trust that better product always wins.
Rock on. Thank you, Mr. Santos. I'm going to close it with 3 things. And by the way, you can email Santos these questions afterwards, santos@retention.com. Number 1, next week, I have this talk that I'm giving called To Shitpost or Not to Shitpost. I've got a lot of experience shitposting, not just with the 6th Sense saga, but I also got Get Emails, which is retention.com, off the ground, doing these really inflammatory Facebook ads and then riling people up in the comments. So I'm going to talk all about it, what I think is good about it, what I think is bad about it. It's not for everyone for all the time, but when is the time to do it? And then sort of some negative consequences that may not be so obvious. So, a pro tip, if you actually wanted to hit your calendar, when you receive the email from Zoom, you got to click add to my calendar under all of the times of this, right? So we figured out last week that wasn't actually happening. So if you actually want the calendar with the Zoom link, you got to go to the email that it gets sent from the reminder and hit it. So that is all. Thank you very much. I think this was inbound led outbound workshop number 5. Oh crap. That is all. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Santosh. Boom. In the fucking restream here.